Hey, welcome back to another ballistics gel test, and hopefully you can hear me over the cicadas that are in the trees. But today we're going to be shooting Hornady American Whitetail 170 grain soft point in 350 Legend. And here is your very, very patriotic Hornady American Whitetail box for the 170 grain 350 Legend load. There is your velocity info right there. Flip it over. Here's your promo information for the Hornady American Whitetail line. You can read that if you would like. Let's go ahead and open it up. Take a look at the ammo. Come on now. If nothing else, the box looks really cool. Comes in a plastic holder. Yank it out. Brass looks really good. It's just a classic soft point hunting bullet. Let's see how it does. And my test rifle today is my Ruger American Ranch, chambered in 350 Legend, of course. It's got a 16-inch barrel up top. I've got a Vortex Crossfire 2 scope. And coming on back, I've got one of my 20-round magazine cuffs. You pop that open, you got a 20-round magazine close at hand right there. Really helps turn the Ruger American Ranch into the perfect truck gun, camp gun, anything you could need it for. Coming around to the other side, I've got my Whitetail deer design on this one. Check out my website, masonleather.com. I would absolutely love to make you one. I will link it in the description and in the pinned comment. We'll be taking 3 shots from 100 yards, firing into 10% ballistics gel that has been calibrated to meet the FBI's ballistics testing protocol. And while ballistics gel isn't an exact proxy for big game, it does provide a repeatable medium through which to test various bullets and ammo against each other. After the shots, we'll examine bullet expansion, weight retention, penetration, and velocity. My goal is to provide hunters like you and I with the most objective information possible to help us make the best choice for our particular hunting situation. The ballistics gel in this video has been sourced from Clear Ballistics. You can find a link in the description. So let's go ahead and shoot it. And here we are down at the blocks after shooting that Hornady American Whitetail 170 grain soft point out of the 350 Legend. And I did manage to capture 3 bullets. I had to fire, I think, 5 to capture 3 because I had 2 that zipped out the side of the second block. And I wanted to have more than 1 to show you guys. And let's go ahead and take a look at penetration. Looks like we got 33 inches, 34 inches, and 35 inches respectively. And we did get some expansion. That's pretty nice. And let's go over to the first block. And it's going to look a little bit like a mess in here because, again, I fired 5 rounds through this, not just 3. And we do have a bit of a wound cavity here. It starts at about the 2-inch mark and goes out to about the 8-inch mark on average, and then starts to taper off. Nothing too significant. The 350 Legend with any bullet isn't going to produce some sort of massive shock wound cavity. It's just not a powerful enough cartridge. But let's dig these out and take a look. And let's go ahead and take a look at the velocities for that Hornady American Whitetail 170 grain soft point out of the 350 Legend. Our high was 2287, our low was 2252, and our average was 2269. And here we are looking at those Hornady American Whitetail 170 grain soft points from the 350 Legend as recovered from the gel. And these things look really, really nice. They mushroomed really well. But first, let's talk about weight retention. Respectively, we saw 164, 164, and 165 grains for an average of 164 grains retained weight. Extremely, extremely consistent weight retention. Basically the same across the board. And that's 97% retained weight. So really high weight retention. And then on to expansion. Again, just like weight retention, very consistent expansion. We saw 0.54, 0.57, and 0.58 inches for an average of 0.56 inches expansion. That works out to 1.6x expansion. And that is sort of par for the course, a good middle ground of what I've seen with 350 Legend loads. So pretty good expansion for what these are. And then on to velocity. We saw 2287 for the high, 2252 for the low, so very consistent velocity for an average of 2269, and that's versus the factory build velocity of 2200 feet per second. So like a few other 350 Legend loads, we actually came in faster, 69 feet per second faster on average. These things are cooking. And then onto penetration, just like everything else, very consistent penetration with this load. 33 inches, 34 inches, and 35 inches respectively for an average of 34 inches. So this load really kind of has it all for 350 Legend. Great weight retention, pretty good expansion, very consistent at hot velocity, and extremely consistent and deep penetration. I'm a big fan. Alright y'all, time for my final thoughts on that Hornady American Whitetail 170 grain soft point load out of the 350 Legend. This load kind of did it all. I was actually really surprised with how good this did. I've got my cheat sheet. Let's go ahead and go over everything. Weight retention wise was extremely high. A little bit surprising considering it's just a cup and core bullet. It's not bonded from what I understand, but we had 97% weight retention, extremely good performance. Expansion wise, we had 1.6x expansion and it was extremely consistent across the board, across all three bullets that were recovered. Now there are some 350 Legend loads that expand a bit more than that. There's actually some that expand less. I'm actually happy with 1.6x out of the 350 Legend. It's a 35 caliber bullet from the start. You don't need 2x, you don't need 2.5x expansion for it to be really big. Expanded wise, these were all over half an inch wide, so I'm happy with that. Velocity wise, this stuff kicked butt there too. We were 69 feet per second faster than the box spec. That's a funny thing with 350 Legend. They seem to be loaded pretty hot on average, and I'm always happy to see that. And then penetration wise, this ammo did great. It averaged 34 inches of penetration, and that was very consistent as well across all three shots. So this load ticked every single box. And then something I want to point out, kinetic energy. This was the strongest 350 Legend load that I have tested so far. With a 170 grain bullet going on average 2,269 feet per second, that works out to 1,944 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. That is by far the strongest 350 Legend load I have tested so far. So this stuff is gonna hit, punch, and keep on going and tear a mean nasty hole in whatever you hit it with. I am very surprised with how this load performed, very pleased, very happy with it. If I'm gonna be hunting deer, black bear, wild hog, stuff like that with 350 Legend, this particular load would be towards, if not at the top of my list. Personally, for me, I think it's sort of a toss-up between this load, this Hornady American Whitetail 170 grain load, or the Barnes TSX 170 grain load. Both of those two performed extremely well. So if you're hunting somewhere that you have to have a solid copper bullet with no lead, I'd definitely go with the Barnes. I mean, you kind of have to. But if you're not restricted by that, this Hornady American Whitetail load does just about everything that Barnes load did, but with a more classically styled bullet. And it actually hit a little bit harder. So all in all, an excellent load. It hit everything across the board. It checked all the boxes. If you've used this particular load, let me and everybody else know in the comments how it did for you. Hey, if you enjoy these videos, check out my website, masonleather.com, and get yourself some leather gear handmade by me just for you. I've been handcrafting leather gear for hunters for over a decade, and I would love to make you something. The link is in the video description. And check out my channel for more hunting ammo ballistics gel tests. I have some big news. Lots of you have emailed me or commented how much value you get out of my videos. And you've asked me, how can you be a part of this and help support the channel? Well, I got to work and now I have a way. I've created a Patreon account where you can join me in helping our fellow hunters. Click the link in this video's description and watch my Patreon welcome video, where I describe to you how your help will impact this channel and our community of hunters as a whole. And when you join me on Patreon, you'll get a lot more than I can give you here on YouTube. You'll have to go watch that welcome video linked in the description to find out the details. I'll see you there.